Irish president urges UN to intervene in Gaza, citing destruction of an entire people. Irish President Michael D. Higgins has called on the UN to take urgent action in Gaza, asking Secretary General Antonio Guterres, I don't know if that's how you say your name, sorry if it's not, mate, I apologize, to invoke powers under Chapter 7 to bypass Security Council gridlock and deliver humanitarian aid. Andalou reports. In a video shared by RTE News, he describes the crisis as incredible destruction of an entire people. Are we to watch children starving, women dehydrated or trying to feed their children, so something must happen. President Higgins expressed support for the UN Security Council, Antonio Guterres, to invoke powers under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter, a mechanism that allows for enforcement action, including the use of force without Security Council approval if deemed necessary. I am personally in favour of the Secretary General of the UN using Chapter 7 procedure, by which, whether or not the Security Council agrees, even if there's a blockage, the rights exist for the Secretary General to seek to put together an international defence of a corridor. Referring to blocked humanitarian aid, Higgins added, there are 6,000 trucks with enough food for 3 months, and it has been blocked, and it's outrageous. The Israeli army, rejecting international calls for a ceasefire, has pressured a brutal offensive on Gaza since the 7th of October 2023, killing more than 60,000 Palestinians, most of them women and children. Last November, the International Criminal Court issued arrest warrants for Netanyahu and his former defense minister, Yoav Gallant, for war crimes and crimes against humanity in Gaza. Israel also faces a genocide case at the International Court for Justice for its war on the enclave. That's what I was talking about. That's what I was hoping would happen once Palestine is recognized by the majority of the members, which it looks like that's going to happen. Then perhaps the UN can look at sending peacekeeping force, which would be, the defence forces of willing countries to send in people. And hopefully the Australian Defence Force would be a party to that. I would like to see that. That would be cool. But I think definitely like the constitutional monarchies under King Charles III all seem to be down. Canada seems to be down. The UK seems to be down. And I think we could definitely get Australia and New Zealand to be down. So I think that would be sick. Panda, is the Irish PM confirmed? Is this like confirmed to be real? He might have been the Prime Minister and he might be the President, because they have both. They have both, because that's typically countries that become republics from the British Empire, obviously with America being a notable exception. Like I know Czechia has a Prime Minister and a President. A lot of countries that have separated from another country or become independent recently, the way that they format their country and their political system is usually that they'll have a Prime Minister and a President. In Ireland, the head of state is the President, currently Michael D. Higgins. So yep, we're good with him. And the head of government is the Irish word, sorry, don't know how to say it, can't speak Irish, is currently Michael Martin. So he's the equivalent of a Prime Minister. Yeah, look, Irish is a very hard language and I'm not going to attempt that. I'm not going to attempt that. Look, I can pronounce the Siobhans, I can pronounce the Aoifes, I can pronounce the Keevers, I can pronounce the Neves, some of the weird Irish names I'm down with. Anyway, sorry, Irish people. I don't know how to say it, but he's a Prime Minister. So he would be referred to as the Prime Minister in, I guess, English-speaking publications. We do like that Irish people are keeping the Irish language alive. We do like that. After a good 700-800 years of British occupation, they managed to keep their language alive. So we like that. We like that for them. It's nice. All right, so this is the video. So let's watch the video.
I cannot really stand in a public venue and give a public speech and speak about our language when I see such incredible destruction of an entire people taking place. Are we to watch children starving, women dehydrated who are trying to feed their children? So something must happen. I am personally in favour of the Secretary General of the United Nations using the procedures that are there in the Charter of the United Nations to use a Chapter 7. Procedure, by which I mean, in fact, actually, that whether or not the Security Council agrees, and even if there's a blockage, the right exists for the Secretary General to seek to put together an international defense of a corridor. There are 6,000 trucks with enough food for 3 months, and it has been blocked, and it is outrageous.
There you go. He said it, so it's all good. It's all verified now. We do like to fact check though, Delta. Thank you for making sure that I double checked everything. I just did like a rudimentary Google this morning, so it is always really good to double check our sources before we go and say stuff. So I think that is the direction that we're heading in. Unfortunately, September is, still a good 4 weeks away, 3 or 4 weeks away. So that sucks. I mean, we would rather people do something now. I think they should have an emergency convening of the UN, honestly, to vote on Palestine and then activate Chapter 7 of the UN Charter. I believe that would be the way to go. That's what I will be praying for and crossing my toes and my fingers and, anything else on my body that can cross. I do have pretty bad arthritis, but we try. Oh, it was so embarrassing today. I had to get people to help me open like my water bottle and like my drink, like my protein drink that I like had for lunch and stuff. Because sometimes when I'm really, really, really sick, my arthritis can get so bad I can't open anything, and it's so embarrassing. I'm like a little baby, like a weak little baby. Please help me open my stuff so I can have my drink. How embarrassing. But what's to stop USA vetoing? So Chapter 7, specifically Chapter 7 of the UN in dire emergencies allows the other member nations to circumvent the Security Council and the permanent members. So Charter 7 is for like very extreme cases, which I believe the starvation and genocide of people in Gaza definitely would constitute the type of scenario that Chapter 7 was designed to negate. And basically, yeah, it would allow member nations to bypass, circumvent the permanent members, the nation states with the veto power. Chapter 7, action with respects to threats to the peace. Article 41. The Security Council may decide what measures not involving the use of armed force are to be employed to give effect to its decision, and may call upon the members of the United Nations to apply such measures. These may include complete or partial interruption of economic relations and of rail, sea, air, postal, telegraphic, radio, and other means of communication, and the severance of diplomatic relations. That's what I've been talking about thus far. I think Australia should have already done that, but anyway. Should the Security Council consider that measures provided for in Article 41 would be inadequate or have proved to be inadequate, it may take such action by air, sea, or land forces. This is what we want to... All land forces, so we're looking at Article 42 specifically so far. All land forces may be necessary to maintain or restore international peace and security. Such action may include demonstrations, blockade, and other operations by sea or land forces of members of the United Nations. Article 43. All members of the United Nations, in order to contribute to the maintenance of international peace and security, undertake to make available to the Security Council on its call and in accordance with a special agreement or agreements, armed forces, assistance, and facilities, including rites of passage, necessary for the purpose of maintaining international peace and security. Such agreement or agreements shall govern the numbers and types of forces, the degree of readiness and general location, and the nature of the facilities and assistance to be provided. The agreement or agreement shall be negotiated as soon as possible on the initiative of the Security Council. They shall be concluded between the Security Council and members or between the Security Council and groups of members, and shall be subject to ratification by the signatory states in accordance with their respective constitutional processes. Article 44. When the Security Council has decided to use force, it shall, before calling upon a member not represented on it, to provide armed forces in fulfillment of the obligations assumed under Article 43, invite that member, if the member so desires, to participate in the decisions of the Security Council concerning the employment of contingents of that member's armed forces. Okay, this is everybody following this, or do you want me to expand? It does seem like there is a way to circumvent the veto vote of the Yankee Doodles. And in any case, even if there isn't, like, America ignores the UN all the time. A lot of countries that are considered, legitimate states ignore the UN all the time. the UN didn't want Iraq to get invaded. They didn't want Iraq to get invaded. It still got invaded. Like, the America will hold up the UN when it suits them and ignore them when it doesn't suit them. So look, I think this is a way to sort of like do it legitimately, you know, in air quotes, so that politicians, you know, can feel good about it and perhaps like, you know, justify it to their constituents. But I still think like, we know how Australia feels about this by now. Look, a good 300,000 people marching in the middle of it, pissing down rain on a gloomy Sunday in the middle of winter in Sydney on a bridge which cops a lot of wind at that time of year, I think really shows how strongly people feel about the situation. So yeah, I don't think Albo's going to have a problem in terms of community backlash. But we do know that the UK and Canada and Australia and New Zealand have been on the back channels discussing this situation. So I don't doubt that we see movement on it. But look, at this point, enough people have already died, and you know, we should have started military intervention a long time ago. And I would like to see Netanyahu and his little cronies in handcuffs. So let's go. Let's do it. It's the Australian way. Let's have a punch on. Let's have a punch on. We can do it. A punch on for the greater good of humanity, which I believe most pub fights really are, if you think about it. It's just a micro scale, and this is a macro scale. You know, sometimes someone's mouthing off and what Israel's total occupation of Gaza would mean for Palestinians. All right, let's do this. And then we can probably watch some cute stuff. Vapor bust. Oh god, do people vape? Isn't it like just as bad for you as smoking? I like people thinking that I look way younger than I am, so I stay away from the prematurely aging habits. But if ciggies were cheap and like they weren't bad for your health and they didn't make you ugly, oh my god. The real crime here is vaping? Yeah. If you want to look hot, it is. Doesn't it cause a lot of like lung problems, almost as many as like actual ciggies? Durries, if you will. Smoking the durries. Alright. What Israel's total occupation of Gaza would mean for Palestinians.
Well, now on one of our top stories, the Israeli Prime Minister reportedly backing a plan for the total occupation of Gaza. It comes as calls continue for more aid to be allowed into Gaza, with more starvation deaths reported in the territory. Global Affairs editor Laura Tingle has the details.
The Security Cabinet is basically all now Netanyahu loyalists. All the people who were in place at the time of the October 7 attacks have been sacked or have walked. And so these are all handpicked people of Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yeah, because even people in his own party or in his own coalition, because I believe he had to form a coalition with other minority parties to form government. It's kind of like how the Liberal Party in Australia can't form government in their own right. They have to have the Nationals because like nobody likes them and they smell and they're stupid and they smell and their mum dresses them funny and they smell like cabbage. I could continue. But yeah, so he's only surrounded by people now that 100% agree with him, because anybody that had any type of morals freaking left, right? Actually, cigarettes have never been experimentally studied either. Well, yeah, like that's what when you do research at uni, like first year research, and you're learning about the ethics of studies, that's like an example that they use, right? Well, we have enough statistical data, that's right, without testing it explicitly, with the hypothesis being cigarettes can kill you. Oh, it's that song. Da, 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 da. Okay, stop getting songs in your head. I have such a problem with my scatterbrain. But yeah, so it's unethical to have a experiment with the hypothesis for research purposes. Cigarettes cause cancer, or cigarettes kill you, and then recruit test subjects for that experiment, knowing that you got to see whether or not they're going to die. You can't have that experiment. And yeah, that's ethics, guys. That's ethics 101. Perhaps we can teach Israel about basic ethics. I think they need a few classes in that.
Despite that, we're hearing reports that there is conflict and certainly confusion about whether this is a really good idea or not. Now, the Prime Minister's office has put out a statement in the wake of those meetings saying that the IDF will do whatever the Security Committee has suggested should be done. but that's effectively him, the Chief of the Defence Force, the Defence Minister and a couple of others. And, you know, it's not much of a, it's not like the whole cabinet or anything like that, but I think this shows the extent to which Benjamin Netanyahu is now basically hostage to the far-right members of his government who are insisting on.
I think Benjamin Netanyahu is the far right of his party. I think he is the far right of his party. I don't think that man needs any encouragement. I don't think he needs any encouragement. He's just happy that he's found his little butt buddies, right? The people that are like, you know, in full accordance with him. So he gets to do the mwah ha 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 and rub his fingers together like a freaking cartoon villain. Look at him. Look at that. What is this haircut, mate? Who told you to put gel in your hair? Look, no, I'm not giving you fashion advice. Actually, you don't deserve it. Let's continue.
The obliteration of the Palestinians one way or another.
How much of a change of tack is this for Benjamin Netanyahu, though? And is this something of a gamble for him?
I think it's a change of tack and it's a gamble because there's a lot of hostility building up within Israel to what's going on, to the ongoing war, and particularly this proposal to take over all of Gaza. There are three areas that the Israeli Defence Forces don't control, which is only about 25% of Gaza, are these areas where they believe the remaining hostages are kept. And so families of hostages believe that if they go into these areas, it's basically signing a death warrant for those hostages, particularly after some hostages were killed as Israeli Defence Forces approached in other areas.
What would this mean for people on the ground in Gaza, though, if this plan were to go ahead?
Well, you know, the suffering in Gaza has obviously been already unimaginable. There are these three small pockets of the region which have not been affected yet.
Jesus.
Presumably this would involve destruction of those remaining sections and essentially leave the population with absolutely nowhere to go. So even worse, and no.
The evil man has literally leveled the place and is culling the population, and there are still people that say that it's hyperbolic, it's hyperbole to say there's a genocide going on and that there's a leveling of a society, of a civilization, when there 100% is. The indigenous people of the area are being eradicated. It's 21st century colonization.
Despite sort of assurances that the humanitarian situation is improving.
If the level of opposition from within the Israeli public is increasing with news of this reported plan, does that have any influence? Does that have any influence on Benjamin Netanyahu?
Well, the analysts in the region are saying not really, because essentially the Prime Minister is in this position where if he leaves, he is vulnerable to court actions, and so there's a lot of cynicism that he's basically doing this to preserve his own position. But without a doubt, if he doesn't go ahead with this, it's basically somewhat an admission of failure that the policy of warfare hasn't worked until now.
Onto the humanitarian side in Gaza now.
I thought they were doing this to free the hostages. Oh, they forgot about their pretext for destroying a people, for committing a genocide, for destroying, you know, millennia-old ancestral homes. Like, they forgot about that for a second, didn't they? They're just fully mask off now, mask off, yeah, we leveled it, now it's our turn to go in and occupy. Oh, you gotta get rid of those pesky Palestinians so we can build, you know, our beachside resorts. Just watching our words, guys. We're just watching our words because I don't have a Fortune 500 executive dad and an uncle who owns his own media platform. I'm just a poor girl from a poor family. Hello, Mr. Love, number one. Nice to see you.
Now, Laura, some aid has been allowed through by Israel. There have been stark warnings, though, from the global spokesperson for UNICEF, that's Australian James Elder, about how much more aid is needed.
Yes, I mean, essentially they're letting in 100 trucks when they need 500 trucks, and we've got those airdrops which are, you know, barely touching the sides of the demands for food, and I think even President Trump is acknowledging that more needs to be done, though he's still sort of staying on the sidelines, if you like, and saying that that the Americans are giving money to Israel to get food in, so he's skirting around the issue.
So this new total occupation of Gaza idea comes amid growing international moves to revive the two-state solution. How do you see all that playing out with the UN meeting, of course, on this next month?
Well, without a doubt, they're trying to maximise the pressure on Israel and on the US by this sort of constant rollout of people coming out in support of the two-state solution. And there's a ceremony or a particular day earmarked at the UN General Assembly on the 23rd of September, where those pledges of support for the recognition of the State of Palestine will take place. Now, the general presumption is that the US would then veto any move by the UN Security Council to let that through, or any other measures that the Security Council might take in response to that. Now, that's a big call for the US, even given President Trump's dismissal of the United Nations as an institution.
This will be a blight on American history if they do veto. It will be like all those horrible artifacts from their past. It'll definitely be, up there. Obviously, the invasion of Iraq, basically every war, Vietnam, basically every war America's, waged for no reason to just cause untold numbers of civilians' deaths, as well as deaths of their own working class boys, because apparently they go around to poor neighborhoods and recruit kids that, don't really have a lot of options post high school, don't have really the opportunity or the funds to go to university. For a lot of people, the military is their only way out in America. Thank God I live in Australia. That's all I freaking have to say. Also, healthcare, things like that. You join the army, you can access healthcare, right? Oof. Anyway, I do go off on tangents, guys. I do go off on the tangents, but you get what I'm saying. We circle back around in the end usually. Usually we get there. Just saying, this is historically going to be something that the world goes, what the fuck, guys? What the fucking fuck? Yeah, it's not great. It's not great. But look, there are ways to circumvent the UN with the Security Council, the permanent members. There's, a way to circumvent them in extreme circumstances, according to Chapter 7 of the UN Charter. Look, international law is nice. It's written on paper, yada, yada, yada. But a lot of the time people don't adhere to it. And there's not really much that's done about it, really. It's, international law is binding to people who choose to be bound by it. And if you choose not to be bound by it, there's no reason that, we can't get the band back together, get the Anzacs back together, get the Canadians, get the Poms, and we send some frigates over, we send some planes over, we send some cargo planes over, and we just do it by force. We just do it by force. And if the IDF don't back down, and, if I'm just shooting in this direction and you happen to get in my way, well, you gotta play those games sometimes. Yeah, if that's what needs to happen, that's what needs to happen, because at this stage, Israel's been given every single chance to deal with this and to stop doing what they're doing, and they've not ceased. And so, what are we to do at this point than to use force? There's not another option as far as I can see. We can't sit back anymore. There's been enough deaths. And there's no justification for this scale of loss of life. Not to mention, how are the Palestinians ever going to build back their cities and what they've lost? Where's all that money going to come from? This is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.
Given the outrage around the world, for the United States to not support moves to ease the situation in the Gaza Strip and even in the West Bank now, I think is going to require a lot of political capital being eaten up on his part. So I think the question becomes, what does it imply if you actually do recognise a state of Palestine? Most importantly, it requires members of the United Nations to assist and support that state. So that changes the mechanics of what happens in the region, and it's both Western nations and Arab nations who are behind this push.
Oh, we found it! Yay, we found it. Is there sea access to Gaza? There is sea access to Gaza. Well, so the Gaza Strip is on the Mediterranean Sea, as you can see here. Lebanon to... Ooh, can we... Lebanon to the north, Egypt to the south. You think the UN would only need to secure the coast? Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying we storm the beaches. It won't be hard. What are Israel gonna do? Little freaking B words? I'm trying to be a good girl, but yeah. Look, they're only brave when they're facing off against unarmed women and children. All right, calm down. Don't lose your temper. It's okay. Everything's okay. Let's watch something about vapes. Please, opioid-laced vapes? Dude, do you know how much an opioid-laced